All right, now we're switching it over to the good part of the show. Just kidding. The entire show is phenomenal. But the Detroit Lions have been making some free agent signings, been making some trades. So some pretty interesting stuff.
To be expected because this roster is a skeleton crew right now. So.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at who's going to be filling this skeleton crew. We have kind of touched on it already, but thank God Romeo Okwara is back.
Absolutely.
3-year, $37 million deal. Great signing, in my opinion. Well worth it.
We were talking about it in our franchise tag segment last week, just saying how it wouldn't make any sense for us to let him walk and then go sign a Trey Hendrickson or someone like that. So I'm so glad to see he's back. I really thought he was going to go get a bag of money.
I thought he was going to leave too. So that makes me ecstatic that he's back.
And I'm pumped he wants to be here. Like he was through this show with Patricia and Quinn, and he still is like, I've got faith that we're going to be good. I'm going to stay here. He gets to play with his brother still, so that's cool. I love it. He's by far the best player on our defensive line, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the quarterback position, we'll touch on it a little bit later, but we trade for Jared Goff. That officially goes through.
Yep.
And then we sign the Green Bay Packer, Tim Boyle.
I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, no, he signs for a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He's obviously just going to be the backup.
Well, it sounds like, as of this recording, I don't know what the situation is, but it sounds like Chase Daniel was shopped, and then no one came back, so he was cut. He was cut.
Yeah, he was cut.
Okay, so we had to eat some money with that, I'm sure.
But you know what? See you later.
Yeah.
Good riddance. Tim Boyle. I mean, has anybody ever seen him play in professional?
I guess just preseason tape,
probably,
but. I mean,
who knows?
It makes sense for him not to go back to Green Bay because of they have Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, yeah.
So not much of a role for him there.
QB2.
Yeah, I like it right now. I think I'd still like to see them make another acquisition, whether it's the draft or by the time the dust settles, when all the free agents are kind of signed. Let's see what happens.
I think that's it for this year, in my opinion. I don't think there's any chance that they take somebody in the draft. But Goff did have an interesting comment about that during his press conference on Friday. Somebody asked him, like, have you talked with Brad and Dan about drafting a QB at 7?
Yeah, he's basically just like, it's not my job.
He said, don't ask me that question. He didn't say that exactly, but he basically said, like, we have had conversations about it, and I'll let them answer that. So, and then Brad Holmes obviously just deflected and was like, I can't rule anything out in a top 10 draft pick, which phenomenal answer. Completely agree.
I like this signing in terms of just let's boost Jared Goff up.
Yeah.
This gives him a chance. Like if this is it, if this is the only 2 quarterbacks in the depth chart.
I really do think it will be.
Then I think that's the best thing for Goff possible. Yeah. Because if we really do feel like we're going to roll the dice on him and see if he's got anything to offer.
I definitely think they give him a year.
You need to give him a chance.
Yeah.
So this makes sense in that regard.
I definitely think they give him a year, and then next year they probably draft somebody. I would hope and pray that they let him sit behind Goff for a year. So give Goff 2 years, let him sit behind Goff for a year. Let's see if he can pick it up, and then let him start the 3rd year.
I'm telling you, man, I think based on that press conference that Goff had and the way that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have been talking about him, I think they really want to see if he's legit and they can give him a legit shot.
That's why I think it's 2 years.
I don't know if they're going to take a QB unless they just have the dream scenario sitting there at 7.
Yeah, no, I think, if he plays good this year, I don't think they take a quarterback unless it's, like 4th or 5th round.
Right.
Which, at that point, you're taking a backup. So,
remember how good Brad Kaya was?
Who?
Who's next?
Jamal Williams. We signed him to a 2-year, $6 million deal. Another Green Bay Packer. I like the signing because I think he is good. I think he will serve well as an RB2. Part of me doesn't like the signing because I'm a big fan of Kerryon.
I was gonna say you're just slotting him in at RB2.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, absolutely. I definitely think he will be. But it pains me to say that because I am a big fan of Kerryon, and I think that he just continuously with this team gets the shaft.
I am also kind of bummed to see Kerryon kind of get sidelined here.
I know, me too. I mean, it's a huge bummer.
But maybe it's just a three
yeah.
rotation. Maybe Swift is the main guy. Maybe you put Jamal Williams on like third down plays, and maybe Kerryon's kind of just like a Swiss Army knife to put him in just like situational spots. And I think they have a committee, so it makes sense to add another piece. But he's a pretty prominent piece, which is why it's kind of like I don't want to say a head scratcher, but it's interesting.
Yeah. The other aspect to this that makes me nervous for Kerryon is that Kerryon is solidified on the team as the pass blocking running back. Jamal Williams is good at that too. Okay. He's one of the better backs in the league at that aspect of the game. So it almost feels like Jamal is replacing Kerryon, which I don't like, but it's fine. At the wide receiver position, we have two signings. That core gets some much needed attention.
Still not very good.
Whether or not it's phenomenal or not, but
you're throwing around the word phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not. But it gets some much needed attention and some, like throwaway contracts.
Well, the two
Tyrell Williams, right. 1 year, $4 million deal. Rashard Perriman, 1 year, $3 million deal.
You remember how we were talking about with the Cardinals? We were like, man, we really hope that J.J. Watt and A.J. Green go out there and play a full 16 games and don't get injured.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with these two.
You think?
Yeah, because Tyrell Williams has been banged up. He was banged up last year. There's a reason he didn't re-sign with Vegas or get – I don't think he got much more interest around the league. And Perriman has been very flash in the pan. Sometimes he looks like unbelievable. Sometimes he's like, who? Where is he?
Yeah.
So
I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't know either of these guys.
Yeah, Perriman's kind of bounced around. He was a first-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens.
Wow, really? I did not know that.
And then he went to the Bucs, and then he went to the Jets. And I think on both those teams, he had his moments, but was ultimately expendable for those teams. Who, by the way, the Bucs, when they did let him walk, they were trending upward on the receiver depth chart. Like they had a pretty solid Mike Evans and Godwin. They didn't have what they have now, which is like they have so many weapons growing in trees. So they let him walk, but the Jets let him walk, and the Jets have like garbage receivers. So
well, I mean, they were making room for what they have now,
I guess,
which is a good crew.
I don't know, man. It seems like it's either really gonna miss or it's gonna hit. I don't have.
My thing is like it's whatever. Like we're shipping this season. As much as Jared Goff said in his press conference, this is not a rebuild. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know why you're saying that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he can't come out and be like, yeah, we're rebuilding.
Why not, though?
Why not? It's just,
we are.
For looks. I mean, it has to be. It's like, you don't want your head quarterback, the guy that you just traded for, coming out there and being like, yeah, I expect us to lose this season.
He's going to look even more dumb, though, if it ends up being that, I don't think this team needs to rebuild, and then we end up going 2-14.
Well, I mean, like, he can't come out and say that. He just can't. It's a mentality thing, I guess. Like, he can't just be like, oh, yeah, I mean, we're going to be horrible this season. I'm sorry, real quick, again on the wide receiver core. Who's wide receiver 1 this season? Who do you think? Is it Cephas?
Probably Tyrell Williams.
You think?
Yeah, Cephas didn't do enough last year to really cement himself as I guess on a garbage roster.
I would put him bare minimum wide receiver 2.
You have to see what you have with him.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I would say, number 1 is Williams, number 2 Cephas. Number 3, Perriman. And don't forget,
do they draft at 7? Do they draft a wide receiver at 7?
No.
From our Twitter feed, it does seem like people want them to draft that at 7. I don't want them to.
You know, it's so scary.
We can get somebody later.
I've seriously, there were some mocks going around, and I was listening to some local radio, and they were talking about the possibility of the Lions drafting Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I've seen that too. So
Lucas just shuddered in real time. By the way, I saw him he jumped a little bit when I said that.
So there are people saying that, but the belief is he won't play tight end because he has a very wide receiver build. He's very extremely pass catching focus. So a lot of people believe that he's just going to transition into a wide receiver role once he makes it to the league. So if they do pick him at 7, while I won't be ecstatic, I won't be flipping the out.
Well, they better come out day one and say, hey, he's not guaranteed to be a tight end. We don't know what he's going to be.
Well, they have to because, my Lord, would that be
I know.
horrible. With Hawkinson, Josh Hill, we just signed.
And he's from Florida.
Yeah.
With Jared Davis and Tease Tabor at the same school. We don't have a good track record.
No, we don't. Yeah.
All right, who's next?
We just touched on him a little bit. So Josh Hill comes over from New Orleans on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. It's
I like it.
Yeah.
Why not?
A good backup tight end.
Dan Campbell just working with people that he's familiar with, and he clearly saw enough that he liked him. So
at this point, are we the Detroit Rams or are we the Detroit Saints?
How old is he?
He is 31.
All right, so a little on the older side, but it's now that Jesse James is gone, it's a good backup spot for Hawkinson.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Yes, and a more affordable, more it makes sense with this contract.
And maybe too, it's one of those things where he comes over from New Orleans working with a lot with Dan Campbell, because Dan Campbell was the tight ends coach in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Maybe he can kind of guide Hawk and say, hey, this is, in this system, do this, do that.
A good vet.
Exactly. A good presence for Hawkinson. So I think it's mostly a beneficial move in that department. As far as his production on the field, I don't expect too much, but for Hawk, it's good.
Yeah. So on the defensive side, we signed Charles Harris, who
I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually. He was a former first-round pick. He played in Miami for a couple of years. He went to Atlanta last year, I think, or maybe a couple seasons ago, and we signed him to a 1-year, $1.75 million deal. A lot of people are looking at it like a rotational piece on the defensive line. He had a couple sacks in Atlanta last year. So I don't hate it. It's a throwaway contract. It's 1 year. It's 1.75 mil. Who cares? With somebody who hasn't gotten to their full potential. He's a first round pick for a reason.
Yeah.
People saw potential in him. So maybe with more a rotational piece and coming in, and who knows, maybe does a couple things here and there and can kind of show what he's made of. So
we just need players. So
yeah, exactly.
Contracts like this that let's roll the dice and see what happens. Those are the kind of moves I like.
Yep. Yeah. Obviously touched on Okora, and then we trade. What was it? A 6th, 7th round pick for Michael Brockers from the Rams.
We should also talk about the fact that Michael Brockers, I think maybe a day or two before the trade, has a quote floating out there saying that the Rams are getting a big upgrade in quarterback jump from Matthew Stafford to Jared Goff.
I was talking to my dad about this, and have you listened to that interview?
It's taken out of context.
So yes, from my understanding, this is what my dad is telling me. So who knows? From my understanding, that was really egged on. They were saying they were literally trying to get him to say Stafford is better than Goff.
That's toxic.
So yeah. So I don't read too much into it. They got him dirt cheap.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah,
yeah. Give me a
for
break.
a trade, and then re-sign him to a 3-year, $24 million deal, which I don't hate that either. Like they're establishing a defensive line, and if he is good, then by all means, like let's get this thing settled out. Let's get it figured out.
He's a bit older though. That's one of the things that's kind of a
You know, at this point, I really don't think that's what we need. Like obviously, I think that is a very possible position that we draft.
30 years old.
Okay, so yeah, I mean that would be ideal for for us to draft a guy in that position either this year or next year. Let him sit behind him, let him learn, let him get up to speed, and then throw him out there and see what we got.
He's a good player, and I guess
I believe he was a captain on the Rams defense, which obviously that is a well-established defense.
These Rams transactions, I'm having to think that Brad Holmes, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he understands the character of these guys and that he understands the players that he's acquiring. So I guess I'll drink the Kool-Aid on it, and I kind of like it. Anything's an improvement over last year's unit for sure.
Yeah. And then on the special teams, we signed back 2 key pieces of that portion. Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Well,
that's his name.
He's more of a linebacker, but
he is, but he's critical to our special teams.
Okay.
And that's where he plays mostly. Okay. And Don Molbeck, who's a long snapper. He's 40 years old. That's all he does. So fantastic, terrific.
I thought I was starting to chuckle. I thought you were going to talk about Fat Randy.
Oh,
speaking of special teams,
Fat Randy, coined by PFT from Part of My Take. A downgrade from Matt Prater, no doubt. But yeah, all right, yeah, cool.
Okay,
like let's just pray that he can hit some field goals. I don't know.
Why didn't we keep Prater? If we're bringing just another veteran in, like what was the harm with keeping Prater? He's been a consistent kicker for us.
I mean, it's got to be a cheaper deal. It seems like that's what they're doing with every position.
We're going to need a lot of field goals next year, though, to even have some semblance of a scoring team.
No way, dude. Goff's going to throw for 60 touchdowns.
Okay, 60 is a pretty high number.
He's going to break the record.
I was thinking more of the 45, 50 realm, but
yeah. We obviously cut a lot of people. This past week it was Joe Dahl and oh God, who did we cut on the defensive end or the defensive line? Danny Shelton, who we signed last year.
No, he wasn't bad last year. I think that defense was a dumpster fire, as we've touched on many times. But him and Jamie Collins were actually somewhat decent additions. Who they came in and they weren't great necessarily, but they definitely were good role players, and they were consistently some of the better parts of that awful defense. So he was owed some money though, so I'm kind of ambivalent.
They're cutting those contracts. They just didn't make any sense.
I've been hearing an interesting term about what's going on with this team right now. They're bloodletting. they're just like, look, it sucks right now. We got to gut this thing. We got to get rid of these garbage contracts, and we got to start from ground zero, and that's cool with me.
And interesting thought. Coleman gets cut, goes to Miami on a 1-year, $2.75 million deal. Bob Quinn was paying that guy $9 million a year.
That's so bad. Oh my God. Smartest man in the room,
brother. So I like what they're doing. I like a lot of these signings.
I think the draft is going to be where we're going to see the biggest amount of just overall just change and like turnaround of this roster.
It is going to be so interesting to see what they do at 7.
We've got a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah, whether it's trade down, draft a wide receiver, draft a linebacker, which fingers crossed. Actually, what would be phenomenal would be that San Francisco trade where we trade down to 11 and still get Micah Parsons.
That'd be unbelievable.
So, golly, that is going to be exciting.
We'll have lots of coverage on that when as we eke closer to it.
Yeah, absolutely.